Now back to our top story. President Donald Trump has announced that he will pause a U.S.-led effort to help stranded ships exit the Strait of Hormuz to see if an agreement with Iran to end the war could be finalized. Trump's decision came a few hours after the U.S. said that offensive operations against Iran are over as it shifts to protecting shipping in the Strait of Hormuz.
Operation Epic Fury is concluded. We achieved the objectives of that operation. I'm not going to, we're not cheering for an additional situation to occur. We would prefer the path of peace.
The back and forth highlights the bind in which Trump now finds himself. For more, we are joined by Stuart Livingstone-Wallace, our executive editor for MENA and Russia. Stuart, is it fair to say that the Trump administration is looking for a way to wind down this war?
Yeah, and it's looking ever more desperate, I think, to do that, because we've had it's been a completely crazy couple of days where we have this Project Freedom announced, and I think basically within 24 hours they pulled the plug on it when they see that this attempt to reopen Hormuz leads to this, rather dramatic escalation. Becomes very hostile, very kinetic, very quickly. And now the US president says there are, signs that they can come to a deal. That's not the first time he's said that. It's very hard to see what the path forward here is, and I don't think there was a lot of comfort yesterday coming from some of his officials where they were talking about, we're going to stabilize the situation and then the world will take over because they need Hormuz more than we do.
I mean, for me, what is most remarkable is actually hearing the Secretary of State Marco Rubio say that they have achieved their objectives of Operation Epic Fury. And if you go back to what they spelled out what those objectives were, I mean, they sort of moved and evolved over time, but essentially it was around the nuclear file, it was around ballistic weapons, it was around the proxies in the region. None of that has been addressed.
Right. I mean, it is fair to say that they have degraded Iran economically, militarily, but as far as we can tell, the regime's still there. It may be different faces to the ones that we had in February, but nonetheless it seems to be solidly in place. And I think the events of the last 2 days shows that certainly the IRGC is firmly in control of what it wants to do in Hormuz and is prepared to act very quickly and very dramatically. So the question is, what exactly does victory look like here? Not entirely clear, as you say. They keep changing the narrative about what victory should look like.
Yeah, and a simple reopening of the straits and going back to where we were before the war started is not consistent with the reason that they entered into the war in the first place. What is the situation now on the straits? Another deadlock?
Yeah, I mean, it seems largely as before, which is that, it is effectively shut. We did have a few ships go through on Monday, it would seem, but, we're talking about 2 or 3 maybe. And at the last count, we've got well over 1,000 ships still stuck there, something like 22,000 seafarers. That doesn't look like it's reopening anytime soon. But again, look, we'll see. This has been a series of surprises. We shouldn't rule out that maybe there can be a deal and we come to some sort of date on and Hormuz reopens. So, you don't want to be too pessimistic, but it's looking quite unlikely anytime soon.
Yeah, okay. So one thing that I want to bring up as well, the Iranian foreign minister is in Beijing today. He's meeting with his counterpart there. Is it right to expect maybe some form of China participation in this new diplomatic effort, should things be successful in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it can't be ruled out. You've got Trump going there himself in, a couple of weeks or thereabouts.
May 15, 16, he's meeting with Xi.
Yeah, exactly. And we know how dependent China is on imports of commodities, right, of everything. And Hormuz is absolutely critical for China. So there's a huge interest there from China. The question is, will it get more involved than it has been? Because so far, China's been taking a little bit of a backseat here, as far as we can tell. Maybe now this is the moment that it comes to the fore. But again, too early to say. I think we'll find out in the next 2 or 3 weeks just what role it is prepared to play.
Yeah, and there are plenty of pundits out there who are saying that Trump quite simply didn't want to escalate the situation before that meeting with Xi that's happening next week. Stuart, thank you so much. Stuart Livingstone-Wallace, our executive editor for MENA and Russia.